Hey, welcome to our show. I'm Dr. Latifat. I'm the host of the MoneyfitMD show. This is where we talk about all things money and mindset because I truly believe that when we pair these two things together, it is pretty much impossible for us to not create wealth. So I hope you enjoy the show. Make sure you learn, make sure you take actions, and make sure you share the link to the show with all the humans in your life so that we can all start to do wealth together from the inside out. Enjoy this episode. Hey, everybody. I am delighted that we are doing our next interview. I hope the others have been helpful to you. If they have been, get ready. And if they haven't been, still get ready because the goal of this is to make sure that every single person that's investing their time to being here gets something more than something out of this, gets a lot. But if all you get is one thing that you take and like turn into amazingness, hallelujah, that's amazing. So I have the honor, the pleasure, and the distinct everything to introduce to you guys Dr. Claire. So let's hear your clapping in the chat box. If you're watching live or on replay, let's see your emojis. Say hello, Dr. Claire. Welcome, welcome, welcome. How are you?
I'm good.
Always looking so fabulous and relaxed and chill. How is life going for you?
Very well. Very well.
So tell the audience, for those that haven't met you yet, who are you? Like, who are you? What do you do? Share your story of how you came to be the person that's sharing some of the wisdom that they're going to be hearing today.
My name is Claire Buchanan. I am 50 years old. I live in Seattle, Washington. I have been a breast cancer oncology surgeon since 2005. I am the mom of two young men, and I got divorced in 2020. I found Latifat after taking one of the physician women wellness courses, Kathy Sepian, and she had on Latifat as a guest speaker. And when I watched Latifat, I was like, this woman is shot out of a cannon, and I want to find her. And at the time, I had gone through basically a divorce after 22 years of marriage, and I was the breadwinner. And therefore, my spouse was entitled to significant years of spousal support. And I was really struggling at the time with some of the decisions that I had made at the time of the mediation and the finalization of the divorce, and really wanted to have more knowledge and more confidence in my finances. And I don't think I really appreciated the divorce's impact on it. Just seemed to all be about finances at the time, and kind of why my marriage ended was the fact that I didn't want to keep being the breadwinner, and I felt very stuck. And so that's how I ended up meeting Latifat and learning about MoneyfitMD.
So tell us a little bit more. So you still are a physician, you were a surgeon practicing. Are you still practicing medicine currently? And, just tell us a little bit more of what is pertinent about sort of like your life, your journey then, and some of like the challenges that's brought you to who you are today, for good and for bad, right? That's brought you to where you are
today. Yeah, so I worked at a local nonprofit hospital here in Seattle, and it was my first job out of fellowship. And near the end of my marriage, I really just began to feel quite resentful that I was responsible for the mortgage and for the kids' college funds, and I really felt quite stuck. And so when I got divorced, I basically decided that I wanted to prepay my years of spousal support. And we had owned a large home in Seattle, and I was able to take the proceeds of that home and pay the majority of the spousal support up front, with just a small amount left. And obviously it also meant that my retirement accounts were cut in half. So I was really definitely starting from a place of scarcity and fear of like, oh my God, what have I done? And I felt a lot of resentment about the fact that my ex was getting this money. And I really think I spent a lot of emotion, a lot of energy sort of noodling on that resentment and you know, the fact that, yeah, he's entitled to a lot of money and he got a big chunk of money. So one of the things that we talked about as a client of Latifat's was we talked about sort of looking at your income, looking at your expenses, and I think that when you're sort of got your head in the weeds and you're just working and seeing patients, you don't necessarily kind of pay attention. And I basically ended up talking to some local breast surgeons in town, and I started asking them about salary. And I said, here's my salary. This is what I've been making. And it turns out that over the past, 5 years of practice, my salary had gone down, even though my RVUs and my level of productivity was about the same. And so I decided to go to my current director and ask for a raise. And I'd been with the institution for like 17 years. And I wrote a letter, I had data, and unfortunately, after kind of being strung along, it became pretty clear that they didn't really value me, or I didn't feel valued. And for them, they wanted all contracts to be the same, and therefore I was going to be paid simply based on productivity and very similar to what the newest partner was being paid. And at that point, I reached back out to after some fear and crying, I reached back out to the local breast surgeons that I had known and maintained relationships with. And I said, do you have a job? And I ended up switching institutions. So I've been at my new institution now for about just over a year. And it's been a good change. I mean, it's been a lot of change in a 2.5 year period, basically getting divorced, selling a house, changing jobs, launching a kid to college. But I really think that I needed sort of to blow up my life because I felt so stuck for so long. And also I've been diversifying my streams of income, has also been really helpful to understand that I don't have to keep doing the same thing every time. I mean, being a doctor is it's exhausting. It can feel all consuming. And also seeing other women in Latifat's community that were sort of doing other things, other necessarily not non-doctor things. But yeah, we're just as smart and capable, and all we have to do is ask questions, and it's okay to feel dumb and like, I have no idea what you're talking about. So now I feel much more confident. I still actually have a planner or financial advisor that I've had for years, but I can certainly ask way better questions than I ever could in the past. My goal has been to retire at least from full-time surgical clinical medicine at 55. And that's still kind of my goal, and sort of looking to see, what am I good at? What are some other ways that I can, reduce my expenses, increase my income? And I think the other probably major thing that I learned is more sort of about intentional spending and sort of understanding, are you buying an asset? Are you buying a liability? And also sort of saying, why am I buying this thing? Like, one of the things I also learned through Kathy Sepian's course is this idea of buffering, which is the idea that when you're feeling sad or hungry or tired or pissed off, I used to just go and start putting stuff in my cart, and realizing that I was trying to fill some hole that wasn't that. And so that was kind of the other thing that we recognize. And yet we're not saying spending is bad either. There are times where, spending the time to take that vacation with my family and my boys has been huge. And I have no regret about that kind of spending. So I think those are some of the other kind of key things that I picked up from being in Latifat's aura and sphere, and also with the other women.
I mean, so if you guys are watching this, how badass is she? Like, this woman here, number one, I actually have a question for you. Why did you decide to prepay versus carry long forward, because that's something that may be helpful to someone that is here in the, in the meeting right now.
Yeah, for me, the reason I wanted to prepay was I didn't want to have this idea that my income, my future income, was going to continue to go to my ex. And I'm very lucky in that I had the opportunity to do this. And one of the other choices that I should say that I made, not only did I take the proceeds from the house to prepay him, but I also ended up giving up more of one of my retirement plans in order to pay him off. And yet it allows me true freedom that any income I make, that I've made now going forward, is mine and mine alone to direct however I want. And that has been so huge, just from a mental standpoint, the idea of writing him a check every month. And I did have to do that for about 6 months after the initial settlement, and I just hated it. And that that wound just continued to fester. And so that really did allow me to sort of really make that break. And because a lot of sort of the difficulties in my marriage were around finances, were around the economic disparity between us. And so that was just sort of poking the bear, multiple times every month. And so I made that decision, and not that I didn't spend some time owning that decision and going through it, but I am very, very grateful I did it that way. And interestingly, I did end up meeting with that mediator again. And she even commented how helpful it was for her to know that I was very committed to that decision. And she said it was unusual, but it really helps to come in with a goal. And that I was pretty set. I don't tend to waffle as a surgeon anyway. But the mediator, appreciated that I had that goal, and she understood my rationale for doing so.
I love it. And I love how you let your desire for freedom be the main thing, right? And I do remember that when we were talking about this back then, and I know you're okay with me sharing this, is you were, of course, very hurt, angry, all those emotions, whatever you want to call them, about having to lose some of your retirement. And one of the things we talked about was the importance of seeing that you were prepaying for your freedom, right? We use money as a tool for freedom, and that's why a lot of us are here, right? And for you, you did that in a way that may have felt painful at that moment, but then because of the freedom you have is why you're now able to be here looking all fabulous with your beautiful looking hair and just living life on your terms and raising your kids on your terms and practicing kindness on your terms and changing your job on your terms. So it's like you're a living example of what people, the decisions, the freedom people want to have in making decisions. You are an example of that. So thank you for leading that. But that brings me to the questions that I want to kind of go through in terms of the recipe that I shared on day one for you guys that are watching, on the things that I believe are important for women that want to break the mold. And the first question, which we've kind of talked about a lot of this, but I want to be very, very clear about them, is what would you define as your why? Like, what is your why that has helped you be this woman and living as this person that's in front of us today?
I think practically, it was the idea that I didn't have to practice into perpetuity. I had two partners who literally worked up until they were diagnosed with cancer and passed away. And I didn't want to be that old man in the doctor's lounge. And I was like, I am not working until I die. I am going to work until I'm 55 as a full-time clinician. But seeing that I didn't have to work into perpetuity, that's a huge why. And also just to be not a grump and a grumpy, crotchety, ragey woman post divorce. I remember, I have to say this because I have to call it out, is I kept saying I was so upset with what my ex, what he ended up doing with the money that he received from the proceeds. And Latifat said to me, so when you bought your house, did you go and say to them, what are you doing with my money? And I was like, oh, you're right, that's not my money anymore, it's his money. And like, you know, it's none of my business what he does with it, you know. So that was really a you know, it was a sea change, or it was definitely a paradigm shift, whatever you want to call it, to have her call that out, that I was sort of like, oh yeah, you're totally right. And that was helpful for me. So I'd say that's probably my why, is again to not practice into perpetuity, and
I love it. I love it.
practice because I want to.
If you want to. And that's a thing. And again, for those that may be newer to the conversation and all that, it may sound weird that I was asking why she cared about what did she care what her, you know, if she sold a property or whatever, if she bought something, what was her business, what was done. It's because if the longer we keep that as our business, the more power they have over us. And the more emotional power, because then we're living this pissed off life instead of living the life we want, which may be pissed off, but we have more control when we mind our own business in a way that liberates us, in a way that gives us the freedom of mind, of time to enjoy. I'm like, listen, if you made it hard for me when I was with you, why should I let you keep making it hard when I'm not with you, right? Because then it's like, I lost and I'm losing, and I'm competitive in that way. I'm just not gonna let you win anymore. So that was the reason. And then, so the next question is this: what would you consider to be an unfair advantage that you have? Because we'll have our own unfair advantage that has helped you succeed so well.
It's probably the fact that I make decisions fairly rapidly. And not to say that every decision I make is fantastic, but I usually will make a decision and proceed forward with the information that I have at the time. And that has served me well most of the time, because I think that you can definitely waste a lot of energy sort of waffling. And I'd rather be moving forward doing something than sort of, you know, waiting for all the stars to align, I guess.
I love it. I love it. Making decisions, understanding that not every decision is always going to lead to success, but making decisions. And it's I've had the pleasure of observing lots of people. And again, success leaves clues. That's why these women are here. But when I think about a common thread through people that I've had the pleasure of interviewing and hanging out with that are, you know, multiple six figures, seven figures, eight figures, nine figures, that making decisions is a superpower. The quicker you make decisions, the more wealth you're gonna bring. And the thing too is, your people that make rapid decisions are people that have their own back, right? They forgive themselves and know that moving the ship forward is more important than waiting for a light to shine from heaven telling you this is the decision, swim in it, right? So I love that. And it's a superpower that if you're a physician, we have the superpower. It may have been quiet in your life, but you can definitely grow it. You can tend it. And it's something that I've had to work with. It's something that I've had to work on in terms of learning to make decisions, learning. And like anything else, like any muscle, you work it out, you get better at it. So I love that. So the next one is numbers. Numbers, again, going to differ based on what season you are in life. You know, there's like 5 billion numbers you can keep track of, but I'm curious to hear, like, what are 1, 2, or 3 numbers that you keep track of in general that you find has been helping you in your journey to achieving the freedom of life you have?
I think one is just what my monthly expenses are. Like everyone likes to like not look at it, but finally writing out like, how much am I paying for my AT&T bill? How much am I paying for my like subscriptions I don't even use? Like that was really valuable to just like write it out and just like, there it is. And not to, like I said, I think Latifat does a good job about not having judgment about it initially, like just knowing where it is and be like, wow, I spent that much at Starbucks. Like, to just sort of know. So for me, it was sort of monthly expenses and finding subscriptions that I didn't even know I had. And then also making decisions about, oh, okay, you know, do I really want to spend my money on that XYZ, whatever it is? That is one number, I guess I'd say, or numbers. the second one would be, yeah, my net worth, because I've been rebuilding my retirement accounts, and you know, looking at my kids' college funds, that kind of stuff. So kind of knowing, not necessarily that contributes to my net worth, but of course, if my kids' college fund runs out, you know, I will obviously be responsible for that other, and how do I pay for that? But not being obsessed, like I want to have, you know, $2 million net worth. It's just like, at first my goal was just positive. That would be great, just positive. And did it take me some time to get there? Heck yeah, because I had years of student debt and all that kind of stuff. And then I guess the third number is, yeah, it's probably the number that, you know, they do these vocational freedom analysis, which is basically, what is the number I need to have if I just totally wanted to step away from medicine completely and live the current lifestyle that I'm living. Now, again, I know that I could lose my job or quit my job and I would be fine, and I might have to live smaller than I'm living now, but knowing, again, kind of what that number is, just so it's not some total pie in the sky. So those are probably the three.
I love it. I love it. I love it. So for those of you guys that are focusing on the numbers that you want to have an answer to this week, because we're going to be giving some giveaways on Friday, I hope that has been helpful for you. Picking what numbers you want and doing the work and letting us know when you do the work, so that you can be one of the people that win some of the stuff we're going to be sharing this week. This has been super helpful. And then, not the last question, but you touched up a little bit on how you're diversifying your income source. So talk to us a little bit about that. What are you doing? How are you building? I know that you're continuing to build just the same way I am continuing to build as well, but tell us a little bit about what you're up to these days.
So I'm obviously still have a clinical income,
But
and
you're not underpaid. That's a big deal.
yeah,
Optimizing your pay is important, guys.
yes, exactly.
I mean, it might as well be another source of income. If you're underpaid, you need to make sure your pay is optimized.
Yeah,
Yeah,
for sure. And then the other source of income is I do expert witness work. And I actually met another woman who was doing expert witness work on that physician's wellness. And so that's another source of income. But I think that sort of that I've actually had for a few years, but I don't think I sort of optimized it to my ability, and also just finding out how much I really want to do, because it's kind of stressful work. And then my third source of income is I actually Airbnb my house. So I house hack. So I really like doing it. It's something I find fun. So last year I made $14,000 off of my house for renting it for 82 nights for the year. And sort of better understanding about how that I can offset clinical income with the LLCs that I have. And then of course I do have money in my retirement accounts that are in stocks and bonds and that kind of stuff. So those are kind of my current. I ultimately want to buy another rental, whether it be short term or long term. But I'm still working on that right now. I'm paying down the second on my house, and also squirreling away money so that I can be ready to make a real estate purchase.
I love that. And honestly, you're such an example, because I remember when we met, you hadn't bought the property yet. You had said you were interested in real estate. You had taken a real estate course, but you were not knowing how it was going to fit into what you loved. And what you loved was like hosting and architecture. And we're like, well, maybe you could do both together. And that's the key, guys. Personal finance is freaking personal, right? She's not sitting down hand holding her stocks, but this is something that gives her money, but also gives her joy in a way that like she gets to host. And and like, remember I read your reviews on your Airbnb, and you're like the little hostess lady. Right? So money is, you get to do it your way. And that's the beauty of having people doing it in different ways, right? And now that I know that your goal is short term, next, I'm going to be on you a little bit to figure out when you plan to do that, because we ain't got time to waste. We ain't got time to waste. Anyways, this has been fun. Last question. what is one or two things that you're doing to help you stay committed and to help you grow into sort of like the decisions you're making, the growth you're making, and all that stuff? What are one or two things that you want to share to us that you're using as a resource?
So I go onto Latifat's Facebook group all the time. I never make it to half the coaching calls, but I always listen to them, and that's so valuable. Um, and I think, again, just getting as much education for yourself and knowing that that is money well spent. If I go to one of these real estate conferences, or I go to a physician, finance course, and like I said, knowing that I may not do it the same way, I'm going to do it the way that makes sense to me is super helpful. And of course, podcasts are great. My other sort of goal is I want to invest with women. I want to invest with women, and because there are too many old white dudes or just bros, frankly. And that's the other wonderful thing is finding other amazing women that Latifat knows that are running syndications, that are doing these multifamily deals, that really are just super inspiring. So, yeah.
I mean, that is really important to me personally, right? Because the way that again, it's about how we want to do money and how we want to build our wealth. For me, I'm never going to be perfect, even in my own personal finance. And imperfect can still be really successful, but I also care about where my money is going. And I don't necessarily want to invest in things that may be changing communities in a way that I don't support. So for me, the women that I bring, and that's why a part of what I do in my community is networking and bringing people that have, I can never vet anybody 100%. I cannot even vet myself 100%, but investing with people, not in projects, right? People that have heart, that have character, that have similar ethics in terms of the things that are important to me, not that they have to believe what I believe completely. So and that's the thing, there is data and there's a lot of experience showing that men and women invest differently. We invest in things that are impact. And that is why I do everything that I do, because I want money in your hands, because I know that money in all of your hands is going to create better things for the future. So thanks for mentioning that. And I'm learning there are men that I bring into my platform, into my podcast and all that. Again, I'm looking for the characters. That's what I'm looking for. So if you guys are here and you know people of character that are doing amazing stuff, connect us together, because I would love to bring them into my podcast or into my community, as long as they're people that are good and have decent goals in life. That's the goal. We want to change the world in a good place. So, and Claire, you're such a part of that. So thank you. Anything else we haven't said that you think you want to share with the people here?
Nope. And it's and don't feel bad about wanting more. Yes. Amen, sister, right? Be
snap,
more.
Snap, everybody. Snap,
be
snap,
more.
Snap. More. We do more differently. We just do. We don't sacrifice our wellness to be more, but we can do both together, right? So amen. All right, guys, let's see the snaps in the chat box. And a big thank you to Claire for coming to hang out with us. I know your time and your dancing is important to you, and all the people that you're post about funny stuff on. So thank you for hanging out with us. And thanks, everybody. I hope this was helpful to you guys. All right, bye-bye.